Welcome to My Tech Opinion, episode 14. My name is Phil Edwards and I'm in Melbourne. I'll be joined in a moment by my regular co-host in Perth, Shayne Johnston. In this episode, our feature topic will be looking at online streaming, whether it's video or audio. So let's get the show underway now. Welcome to My Tech Opinion, episode 14. As I said before, my name is Phil Edwards and I'm in Melbourne. And I'm joined, as I always am, in Perth by Shayne Johnston. G'day, Shayne. How are you?
Hey, Phil. How you doing?
Good. Now, before we get underway, I just want to remind everyone that My Tech Opinion is brought to you by Aussie Tech Heads Web Hosting. For great hosting plans and support, visit athwebhosting.com.au. Now, for those who haven't caught our show before, My Tech Opinion is a program that looks at a feature topic every episode. And it won't be just be us. Where possible, we'll also have guests that take part and will lend their expertise to the discussion of our feature topic. That said, this week's feature topic is looking at online streaming and whether it's audio or video and some of the services that you can look at. Now, we don't have a guest with us this week, but we hopefully will in the next few episodes, as we tend to have a bit of a rotation going there. But it's just the two of us ranting and raving on as we normally do, so that's the main thing. How have you been going though, Shayne?
Pretty good actually, Phil. Yeah, no, everything's good. What exciting things can I tell you about? Oh yeah, this morning I was on a different podcast. I was on the Screensavers,
yes.
Which is Leo Laporte and the TWICH network over in the US. So
cool.
It was an early start for me. I had to get up at 5 and then get ready for the kickoff of the show at 6. But then they didn't do my segment until right to the end, so it was after 7 o'clock. Before I was on. But no, all good.
Wow.
Yeah. They gave us a really decent plug. So anyone who wants to see me on the Screensavers and hear what I had to talk about, which was virtual reality and augmented reality, just go on YouTube and search for it.
And do they do it as an audio podcast as well?
They do, but that's one of those ones. It's probably more popular as an audio podcast because I guess at the end of the day it's people talking, but it's usually ones where, like today, they had another guy on where they were demonstrating an Oculus Rift kind of HoloLens kind of headset.
Cool.
By what's the word? Like a new company. And
yep.
And then they had Jason who was doing reviews of the Oculus Go, and he did a review of another one by Lenovo last week as well. So they were just comparing that.
Cool. I haven't really used any virtual reality type stuff. I've used augmented reality in the purpose of my phone, but nothing that's really immersive. So. That's where I reckon that augmented reality angle is where Google should have taken their Google Glass product, and ditched the camera. They didn't need the camera.
One of the things they actually covered...
They might have augmented, but anyway.
Yeah. One of the things they covered on the Screensavers was E3, because that was on last week.
Yep.
And apparently none of the big companies talked about virtual reality at all. So everyone's sort of saying that could be the death knell for virtual reality, and augmented reality will probably be the thing that kind of carries on.
Well, a friend of mine bought one of the PlayStation headsets, and he sold it pretty well quickly after because he found like he was going to be sick all the time.
Yeah, a lot of people have that problem.
So, I think people just like to be passive and looking at a screen rather than the full thing. Anyway, there's opportunities there. I just don't think that they've had the killer app on it yet.
No.
Excuse me. Well, and so have a look for the screensavers for the episode, which was, what's today's date? The 15th?
Yep. Yeah, it's out already. Came out today. So yeah, they have a quick turnaround because obviously they've got a team of people working on each show.
And they've got a nice big fat fibre connection too, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Saturday the 15th of June episode, because that's, 16th of June. Yeah, that's right. Works that way. So have a look at that and you'll see Shayne on that video. Also, in some topics we were going to look at, you got an email. The Page Up, the recruitment service, had recently had a data breach, and a number of people were receiving emails to notify that they had potentially had their data compromised. And, when you're applying for jobs through recruitment sites, you tend to put a lot of personal information in there. Now, Shayne, you got an email regarding Telstra's use of the Page Up service.
Correct, yeah. It was just a generic email that would have gone to all their probably ex-employees and other people that potentially apply for jobs. I imagine that I would have got it because of being ex-staff. And it was just exactly sort of saying, that Page Up had some sort of breach, the possible types of data or types of information that potentially has been stolen are things like date of birth, name, address, everything they need to potentially take over my identity and take over my life. But really they can have it if they want it.
Yeah. And the other thing that I talked to someone about recently was that the way that the Page Up systems worked is that you don't have a single login for Page Up. You have a login for each sub-site. So if Australia Post is using it, in Australia, Telstra and other companies, and you've applied for a job in all of them, you will have multiple Page Up profiles. So that's always a bit of a concern as well. So, and as I get something in my eye, which is, really good for those who are watching on video and those who are listening on the audio going, I don't know what he's talking about. So, what else was there? Some follow-up. We talked previously about NBN coming to my neck of the woods. That was supposed to happen on Friday, and it didn't.
I wasn't going to mention the war.
Anyway. So the NBN website says that my area is active. It doesn't state that my street is active. It says the full area. So if you looked at it from the shaded purple section on the map, it says it's active. But when you look at specifically my address, it's not. Quite funnily, I'd had it was foreboding what was actually going to happen. On Thursday, I received an email. This is before I knew that there was going to be a delay. I received an email from my chosen provider saying, there's a delay in connecting your NBN service. It's nothing to do with us. We're sorry about that. And I'm like, don't tell me it's not going to happen tomorrow. And I'm panicking, and I've rung up the company, and they're going, well, I can't see anything about it on your account, on your application form. I'm like, what? And then I realized that it's actually for the radio station that I applied for last year, and it's been held up in the hybrid fibre coax slowdown. Yep. But because it just said Dear Phil, I freaked out. But then I've got the same email to my personal address this morning.
It also said Dear Phil.
Yeah. So I'm just, I'm a bit annoyed. I have shot off 2 emails to NBN Co. One about the slowdown and can you actually tell us what the problem is? Yep. Rather than it's just not available yet. And if it was just my house that wasn't available, I would lose my nana. But there's a number of, I've been doing address searches to confirm where the issue is. And it's a lot of houses in my area that have not been connected yet. So hopefully it's get resolved soon. That's number one. And then the follow-up, I'm trying to find out about the Technology Choice Program. They say they have a Technology Choice Program. They're developing one for fibre to the curb to fibre to the premises, but they have not released any details at this point. which doesn't bother me in the short term. But as we've talked about in previous episodes, that I will be building a new house in the next 12 to 18 months. And on my current site. So what I want to be able to do is potentially, if it's cost effective, upgrade to fibre to the premises, considering we're ripping the whole lot down and starting from scratch anyway.
As long as it doesn't cost you $1.2 million like it did to that other guy.
I know. For those who are unaware, there was a story about someone who was in a fixed wireless area on the NBN coverage map. They paid their $660 quote fee to get a quote for upgrading to fibre to the premises, and the quote came back at $1.2 million. While I do think it's overly excessive, it wouldn't have been cheap regardless, because he would have had 7 kilometres of fibre trenched to his house, specifically for his use. So you sort of go, okay, if it was $200,000 for that, I can go, yeah, that's fair enough. But 1.2 is a bit excessive. Yeah. Anyway,
if you went with the upgrade, does that quote fee or $600 come off of the quote? Do you know?
Don't think so.
Yeah.
But the thing is that we'll knock the house down, and I need to. If I don't go the upgrade, I've got to put in new copper.
Yeah, which is stupid. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's still a lot to understand about what that process is. They haven't released it yet. Hopefully they'll do it before I actually do the build. But we'll give our viewers and listeners a run through of the process of getting a quote from NBN Co. Trust me, we'll be talking about it. Finally, in just a bit of a quick discussion. In the United States, AT&T has been given the okay by a court to officially buy the Time Warner Group assets. I read a little bit about it. You mentioned it as well, Shayne. What were your thoughts, and what had you heard about the discussion regarding it?
Well, again, it was one of the news items they talked about on the screensavers this morning, and I just come through, and that's the only reason why I heard about it. Based on their interpretation of how it all kind of went down, they reckon that the judge didn't have a clue of how the internet worked and all that kind of thing. The main reason why the judge seems to think it's okay is because, in his opinion, AT&T and Time Warner are like a vertical businesses, and they don't kind of cross over in any way, not realising that one needs the other, and they use the analogy, well, they seem to think that the judge thinks that Netflix just kind of arrives at someone's house and doesn't realise that you need an ISP like an AT&T, and if AT&T own the pipes, as the analogy they used, and they also now own a company that makes the content.
Yep.
Then they're obviously gonna. I mean, they've released a statement saying we're not going to do that and all that kind of stuff, but the worry is that they're going to give their own subsidiaries kind of a leg up, I guess. And it's the same analogy that I think we used last week when you were saying that if an airline owned the airports as well as the airline.
Yes. Look, it is a concern. They talk about net neutrality in the United States is a bit of an issue. The way that they look at it there is where a ISP will has the potential to charge companies to effectively create a faster connection. The whole idea of the internet is supposed to be arbitrary, and you can, as long as the device that you're wanting to access is connected to the internet, you can connect to it. I'm oversimplifying it, but that's the short way of it. So by giving preference to certain types of traffic based on a user pay system is a concerning issue. So, the judge has gone, well, they're separate, and I agree that they're separate, but the way that the information is delivered, and it becomes a concern. And for those, you go, well, who cares about Time Warner? The stuff they own, where do we go? HBO, Cinemax. So a lot of these American, of course. HBO Go streaming services, HBO Films. So they're all part of the HBO brand. Then there's the Turner Broadcasting System brand. True TV, TBS, TNT, Turner Classic Movies, Turner Sports, the Cartoon Network, Adult Swim, Boomerang. They own 10% of Hulu. There's some Latin America things, some products in Japan.
Small company called Warner Brothers.
Yeah, Warner Brothers, CNN they own.
Oh,
So they own CNN, Warner Brothers, which has DC Entertainment and DC Comics. Warner Brothers Studios in Burbank in England. They don't actually own Warner Brothers Movie World in Australia, though. I think that's licensed. It's owned by Village Roadshow.
all right.
Warner Animation Group, New Line Cinema, Castle Rock Entertainment. Where else have we got? Warner Brothers Television Products, which includes The Big Bang Theory, amongst others. The CW, which is 50% owned by the CBS Corporation, which is sort of a lower tier network. Hanna-Barbera Animation, and a number of games companies as well. So they have, you know, a big reach into that. Now, a lot of people have been looking at as a precursor to what could happen with the Disney 21st Century Fox deal.
Yep.
And so a similar company, which is Comcast, they're not necessarily like a mobile network. They're a satellite, you know, production network. They've let's start again. Disney have put in a bid for 21st Century Fox assets.
I thought that was a done deal.
No, not yet. So it's got to get 21st Century. So what it was this is where it gets confusing. So there was News Limited, or News Corporation, I think it was in America. News Limited was the Australian original parent company, but it became domiciled in the United States. So News Corporation owned a lot of assets, including newspapers, television, so on and so forth. And they had the phone hacking scandal a couple of years ago, with things going on in the UK. And also the fact that Rupert Murdoch is obsessed with newspapers, but newspapers are potentially a dying business. So what they decided to, with those scandals and what have you, and they were suggesting that News Limited or News Corporation was being potentially dragged down, one with the scandal, but also the assets like, you know, Fox News Television and, you know, the 20th Century Fox Studios and things like that were being impacted by the issues on the print side of things. So they split the company into two, and they created 21st Century Fox, and they created News Limited, which is all the newspaper and publishing assets. So Fox News is under the 21st Century Fox brand, as well as the Fox Television Network. And Disney made a deal to acquire the assets, but they wouldn't have any hope of getting the Fox network for the main reason of anti-competitive nature, and Disney owned the ABC American network.
Yep.
So they wouldn't be allowed to own those licenses. The other thing is Fox News makes a lot of money for their businesses, so that Fox News and the Fox TV network and a few other minor things were going to be taken out of 21st Century Fox, and things like the 20th Century Fox movie studios, the library, the cable channels like FX and things like that would then go over to Disney.
Yep.
Now, for Disney, it's about making money. There's, you know, that's the primary aim for it, but it's not purely about making money, because they're seeing Netflix as a threat. And Netflix obviously has been producing a lot of its own original programming, and the relative ease that they can distribute a platform like a streaming service means that they're all going, well, why would we provide it to Netflix where we can do our own?
Yep.
So Disney have said, well, we're going to create our own streaming service, but to be a real competitor against everyone, and Netflix in particular, that they would need to have a lot of content. So by bringing the 21st Century Fox brand into it with their subsidiaries, gives Disney control of a lot of content.
Yeah.
The headline one, of course, is bringing Marvel assets that are owned by 20th Century Fox back into the Disney fold, into the Marvel fold. So effectively, X-Men, Fantastic Four, would then go back to, would be handed back straight back to Marvel. What does News Corp get out of it? Well, the main shareholder, Rupert, Uncle Rupert, gets 20% share of Disney.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Now, Disney, as we've seen with them buying Lucasfilm and Marvel in particular, have been able to leverage those assets across their platform. So Disney bought Marvel, and of course they make a lot of money off the Marvel films, but then of course they have Marvel at Disneyland. They have Marvel characters at Disneyland, and the cartoons on their channels and all this sort of stuff. Their investment in Star Wars is going so hardcore. They're building their biggest single non-full park extension to Disneyland and Disney World. That is a Star Wars land, or whatever it's called, Edge of the Universe, or whatever they're calling it. That is it's massive. And even if you see overhead shots of what they're building, it is giant. Now, you've been to Disneyland, Shayne, in Anaheim?
Yep, and the other one?
Oh, you've been to the other one too?
Yep.
Bastard. I wouldn't go there. So, the Toy Story Toontown thing in Disneyland is, it's not small, but it's not big compared to the rest of the park.
Yeah.
So they're building the Star Wars bit next to that.
Oh, right.
And it's about 4 times the size.
So they're doing the Star Wars thing in...
They're doing it at both
they're doing
at the same time.
Oh, right.
They know it's going to be so huge that rather than build it at one and then build it at the other later, they're building them at the same time, and they will open at the same time.
Oh, because I know the one in Orlando
is so massive.
Yeah, the one in Orlando, they're also doing a hotel, a themed hotel as well.
And I think they're doing it at Disneyland too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're adding the first new hotel to Disneyland in years.
They're going all out.
Yeah, they're probably putting $2-3 billion into this.
Wow.
You would hazard to guess over both parks, but it's going to underpin visits to Disney resorts in the United States probably for the next 10 years. I mean, we went to, last time I was at Disneyland, we went about a year after they'd opened Radiator Springs for cars section, and a year after it opened, you think it had died down a bit. A year after it opened, it was nuts. And, we tried to get a fast pass for the main ride, the Radiator Springs races. Couldn't get one. They were gone by 9 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. And we had to wait an hour and 20 minutes to get on it. So, whereas other rides, we didn't have any issue with.
Yeah.
So it was, in the Tower of Terror at Disneyland, they've changed to the Guardians of the Galaxy ride or something like that. So they're all doing all those things. Anyway, I'm going into Disneyland talk, but we're talking about that acquisition. So in a couple of weeks, the 21st Century Fox shareholders will be voting on it. But Comcast is coming in with an all cash bid rather than a stock bid. They're probably offering more, so that Disney will probably have to potentially bump up a little bit more. But I would think that a Disney stock in a company that gets those assets rather than cash would be a better option for Disney shareholders.
Yep.
Now, it does create a media behemoth, but I think we're getting to that point in the world where creating your own platforms, and we're seeing new franchises in the world of Game of Thrones, and yes, that's owned by HBO, but it shows that you can create a new franchise.
Yeah.
Harry Potter, you can create a new franchise. That's old now, but there is the possibility to create something new. So they're wanting to leverage off that. I think Disney will win out, but this sets a good precedence for Disney getting what they want, but it also sets a precedence for Comcast going, no, we can try and do this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, look, interesting times ahead. We'll talk about it more when we know more, but I'm not an expert on the business side of things, but I probably know enough to be dangerous and not enough to be an expert.
Yep.
But I think that, from one point, it's scary how much control that Disney have. And if you look at really the, if you had have said, okay, the Disney merger went through in January when it was announced, fully gone through.
Yep.
They had Black Panther from Marvel. This is purely cinema release. Black Panther from Marvel. They then had Avengers Infinity War. Deadpool 2, because that's a Marvel property, but it's owned by 20th Century Fox.
Yeah.
So that would become a Disney film.
Yep.
Then they had the Solo film. And then peppered in the middle there was another big release, and I can't remember what it was.
The Last Jedi?
Well, no, Last Jedi was late last year, but that's a Disney film.
Yeah.
But then, of course, then you had... so Ocean's 8 was probably the next big film to come out. That's Warner Brothers, which is part of our conversation.
Yep.
And then you had, Solo, and then Incredibles Part 2 came out this weekend. So Disney have, pretty well had a fair control over that thing, whether it be directly or indirectly or potentially directly.
Yeah.
So it's scary how much control they have over the box office, eh?
Mm-hmm.
But, it shows that, how much is on the line. Like, we're talking billions of dollars of, potential revenue. So
I have a question, and I think I asked you this a couple of weeks ago, kind of offline, but I'm not sure whether you had the opportunity to answer it or not. And I don't want to go kind of too heavy into this topic because it's not our deep dive topic.
No.
But how come Warner Brothers owns a TV network, don't they? Is it NBC?
No. Warner Brothers own the CW.
Oh, I thought they owned a bigger mainstream one.
No.
Okay.
Comcast,
Yep.
who's owns NBC.
Okay.
And they own Universal Studios.
Because I think I asked you the question about Big Bang Theory. Why is it produced by Warner Brothers, but they're not released on a Warner Brothers TV network? But I think that kind of just answers the question, I think.
Yeah. Warner Brothers is effectively a production company.
Yep.
So, and it's, and I think we did talk about it a little bit, but it comes down to, see, the thing is, Australian television has historically been a different model.
Yep.
So, if you looked at, I'm trying to think of going back an example. This is a really bad example, but it's just sticking in my head. So there's the Flying Doctors.
Yep.
So the Flying Doctors was a production company made it, but they produced it, and it was made, all the studio shots were made in Channel 9 in Melbourne.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And it aired on the Channel 9 network. They probably had, owned a fair crack of it and had skin in the game.
Yep.
The Australian television is now moving towards an American model of production company. So the ABC would produce everything in-house. Now it varies. So let's think about what's produced for whom. So Family Feud, and they've sold these assets, so it's not strictly them anymore.
Yep.
But for example, Family Feud, which was on Channel 10 until recently in Australia, was produced by a production company, and it was made in the Channel 10 studio, or Channel 7, what used to be the Channel 7 studios in Melbourne.
Oh, okay.
even The Voice that's on Australian television at the moment, that's produced out of Fox Studios in Sydney,
Yeah.
a third-party production company. They all use different things. Rove Live, when it was on Channel 10. It was produced in the same studio that Dancing with the Stars was in.
Oh, right.
So, there's all these, like they produce things in all different places. Like it's not a set production company anymore.
Yep.
So some things are done on site, some things aren't. So, Channel 9 don't really even have studio. Like they have a news studio that they use, Melbourne and they use one in Sydney for the Today Show and things like that. But then they rarely use, but they don't really have their own studio complex, for example, in Melbourne anymore. They're about to get rid of their Sydney one. Yeah. But the Melbourne one, they lease space at movie studios and they use that for things like the Footy Show and stuff. So, it's historically been a production system. So what's a good example? So here's one. Brooklyn in America, Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yep.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine was a show that was produced by NBC Universal Studios that was aired on Fox.
Oh, right.
But then Fox cancelled it, but NBC picked it up. So now NBC are producing it for NBC.
Oh, okay.
And what else was there? And then they will do syndicated content for daytime. So Ellen, for example, is a syndicated show. So that's produced by Warner Brothers.
Yep.
But then they will syndicate it out to different TV networks around the country. So in California, you might see it on, and I can't remember what channel it's on, but we'll say it's on NBC in California, but it could be on CBS in Arizona.
Yep.
So there's all these things that they do because also outside of the capital cities, that in America, that networks, the actual TV channels are actually owned by independent companies.
Yep. Not
Not all, but some.
Yeah.
So often what happens is that the network content being, whether it be NBC, CBS, ABC or whatever, they will supply content from, we'll say, 6 o'clock at night through till 2 a.m. in the morning.
Oh.
And then any other period of time is up to that channel to fill. So they might buy the reruns to The Big Bang Theory to be on CBS, Arizona, and they play it during the day.
Yeah.
So it's all weird. It's all weird.
Right.
There's this really good book. There's a really good book, and hang on, I'm going to find it. So about 7 or 8 years ago, when Jay Leno left The Tonight Show and Conan O'Brien took over, and then Conan got sacked only after 6 months on air. And I'll find the name. This is a question without notice. Welcome to silence on My Tech Opinion. It's always good.
Conan O'Brien's got his own show still, though, hasn't he?
Yeah, but it's a different show than what he had.
Oh, okay.
This is where the issue is. God, I can't find it. I will find it later on. Actually, what we'll do, you know what we're going to do? We're going to take a very short break on My Tech Opinion, and we'll come back with the answer for you after this.
All right.
And welcome back to My Tech Opinion. We had a little break there, and I've got the answer to the question, Shayne, that I was going to talk about. Okay, so there's a really good book that I recommend people read, and it's called The War for Late Night, and it talks about the Conan O'Brien Leno issue that occurred in 2010, I think it was. And he also wrote a book called The Late Shift, called Letterman and Leno and the Network Battle for the Night, which was in May in 1995 that was released. So basically, it gives you an insight. Like, yes, it talks about the politics involved in the late night time slot and how much money is involved in American television, but it gives you a better understanding of how the structure of American television networks is owned, and why things have worked and haven't worked and couldn't happen in a certain way and things like that. So a war for late night, I recommend, if you are interested in the machinations of television, read that. And it's really, really, really cool. So, yes. But it, how things work and move around and what have you, and why people have certain shows and some people don't, and how things work and what have you, as I knock my camera again, which is really good. I recommend having a look at that. So it gives you an understanding of that sort of thing. Anyway, I think enough about that particular topic. I could crap on about American broadcasting for hours, which is scary. So anyway, we might go into our deep dive topic, which is sort of broadcasting in a way, but it's live streaming.
Yeah. It was almost a segue there. Almost a segue.
So this week this episode in our deep dive, we're looking at live streaming. And I suppose the angle we look at it is from an internet perspective. So, and one of the ways you can broadcast. Now, in Australia, as you would be aware, in the rest of the world, you can't just set up a TV station in a traditional terrestrial format. You have to spend millions and millions of dollars on buying a license, probably $1 billion these days, probably worth less than they used to be. The same goes for audio with radio stations. You would need to go and buy a radio station, which costs a fortune for a commercial license. The other option is a community license, which, there are strict rules about and, benefit to the community and what products you're providing. But it costs a lot of money to set that up. And, I'm involved in community radio as it is, and we're looking at changing some equipment, and it's tens of, well, put it this way, we're getting an antenna put on a roof.
Yeah.
You go, that's cool. The bill has gone from $2,500. I think it's nearly at $10,000 for one antenna. And that's for a low powered antenna in a residential, area that serves 200,000 people.
So I have a question,
Yes.
straight off the bat. As I understand it, because we've kind of talked about this off and on for a while, and I'm starting to get kind of a better understanding of how it works.
Yep.
Part of the licensing arrangement for community radio is that you only broadcast within a certain area, yeah?
Yeah, that's the short way of looking at it. So there's two types of community licenses, and there's probably more than that, but there's two types of community licenses. There is, particularly in the capital cities, there is a metro-wide community license. And the idea of that license is that you broadcast to the entire population of, in my case, Melbourne, in your case, Perth or Sydney or wherever you are. But you can, the type of content that you produce can be specific. So, in Melbourne, we have 3MBS, which is a classical music station. We have Light FM, which is a Christian broadcaster. We have Sin FM, which is the
opposite.
It's a youth broadcaster.
Yeah.
We have 3ZZZ, which is ethnic. So they look at focusing on programs for ethnic inclusion rather than the local footy. And then you've got sub-metro-based licenses. So they run at a lower power transmitter. They have a defined license area. And while you might get their signal outside of that license area, there is no guarantee about that. But they're designed that you'll pick them up clearly within their broadcast area. And the strength of the transmitter output will vary depending on what the Australian Communications and Media Authority sets on your license condition. But you've got to provide programming that is representative of your community. So, I can't sit there and play rock music all day because that's not fully representative. If it was representative of my community, that's fine.
Yep.
But it's not fully representative of my community. but so the downside of a sub-metro license is that you'll have a lot of different programs that won't necessarily flow as well. Whereas, a commercial license, you can play whatever the hell you like and you can charge money for it, lots of money for it. So, the last commercial license that was sold in Melbourne was what is now Smooth FM. That went for $75 million. The license that became Nova went for $100 million. Community license is issued for free.
Oh, okay.
Other than some basic admin fees or something like that.
Yep.
But they're generally owned by a non-profit organisation that is not by an individual. There's limits on the advertising that you can do on there, which is called sponsorship. You have to clearly tag that sponsorship's involved and things like that. So there's things that you can do there. Now, the one thing that community stations have got going for them in the modern age is that they can stream.
Yep.
So, I do my program on a Monday from 3WBC in Melbourne, but you can listen to it in Perth thanks to the internet.
Yep.
So that helps the reach of those particular programs, and the internet and podcasting and what have you is making a really important contribution to maintaining the viability of community stations in Australia.
So I guess the horse is bolted and you can't really put the genie back in the bottle, but early on, did the authorities kind of have any issues with the fact that, maybe that they kind of saw that you using the internet, you as in the radio station using the internet to do your broadcasting was kind of a way of getting around your licensing restrictions?
A little bit, but the thing is, you look at something like what the government is doing with community television, they've gone, we're going to take your broadcast spectrum off you and tell you that the internet is the content delivery method of your future.
Yep.
So, I think that if they do that to community radio, that a government would lose an election if they decided to try and do that.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I guess you're forcing people to have an internet connection to listen to it, and
well, the community television, it's a dicey issue as it is.
Yep.
And community television is only at the last minute being given a 2-year extension on their terrestrial licenses, and I think that's because the government doesn't know what it's doing with them, with the spectrum that they want to take back.
Yep.
But the thing is that television is it's a bit different, and it's not taking away from community TV. I think it's important.
Yep.
But it hasn't had the traction that community radio has had.
Yep.
And it's the car factor,
But
so,
from your perspective, from the person who kind of, you don't run the station, but you're the president of the station, for those who don't know.
Yeah.
You just touched on the price of the antenna that you're having to put up. Surely, just broadcasting over the internet is a truckload cheaper.
It is. Absolutely it is. But this is the thing that I tell the people at my station. If we are an organisation that has a broadcast licence, we are a radio station. If we streamed on the internet and didn't have a broadcast licence, what are we? We're some guys doing an online audio stream. That's what it comes down to.
Really? Just because of the method of the delivery method changes?
Yeah, it legitimises it. What if Channel 9 turned around tomorrow and said, we're not going to broadcast on free-to-air TV anymore?
Yeah.
Are they still a TV station?
If given the amount of smart TVs that are out in the world at the moment, and the shift to smart TVs,
yep,
I don't think the delivery method governs what type of organisation they are. If you're a milk company and you deliver milk by the old-fashioned milkman versus you just deliver milk by selling it through a shop, you're still a milk company.
Yeah, but that's different. There, and I think it, and I think you're right, but there's also perceptions.
Okay.
So, let's forget about you, and let's say look at your parents.
Yeah.
Now, if Channel 9 stopped broadcasting on television, on free-to-air television, and went internet only,
yep,
how likely are they to watch Channel 9?
Oh, yeah. I can see what you're saying because it's more generational rather than perception.
Yeah.
Perceptive, I guess, yeah.
And they're using, and see, broadcast stations are using online methods as a secondary platform. So, you know, I want to watch the Today Show on the train for half an hour, or I want to catch up on a clip on YouTube, or like it's becoming the online services are becoming a very important platform, but it's not a replacement. It might get there, but it's not yet. And a good example of how, and I'm going to stuff the term up, NBN, I think it's multiplexing.
They chop the signal up into different bits.
I think multiplexing is going to be the wrong terminology, but I'm going to use it anyway. And those who are listening who know what the correct term is, come back and tell me I'm an idiot. I'm quite happy for you to do that. In the original NBN design phase, that they were going to include this multiplexing or whatever it was called into the infrastructure. So the idea was that you were going to stream a large sporting event, and in a traditional stream sense, and this is perfect for our topic. So in a traditional stream sense, we have a server sitting there providing a stream. And what will happen is that you access a website or access an app on your phone, and it will contact that server, and that server will spit a copy of that stream to you.
Yep.
Now, if 100 people access that feed, 100 streams go out from that server. Yep. So you need things like, you know, and there are services that do all this for you. So this is from a discussion point of view. You don't, if you want to do online streaming, don't worry about this. But what will happen is that, you know, it'll push that content over content delivery networks and all this sort of thing. But effectively, 100 viewers, 100 streams. Now, the NBN in the original design phase said, well, okay, that's going to put undue stress on the network. So what you could do is that Channel 9 or whoever could create a stream, and they could push it into the network. That one stream could feed out to the point of interconnects, I think it was. Yeah. So you would do one stream to your local point of interconnect, and then anyone who's accessing that stream who are connected to that point would get the stream only from their point of interconnect.
Yep.
Not that 100 back to a point of origin.
Yep.
So that would make that they had streaming built into the network from day one. Now, I think that they've actually dropped that requirement out of as they've rolled the network out, probably through fiber to the node or your other technologies. But in the fiber to the premises, that was built into the thing at the start. The fact that they didn't have any success with that product shows that we're not quite there yet.
Yeah. I mean, what you just described is how a content delivery network works.
Yes.
Those points of interconnect, as you described them, they're basically proxy servers where the content is kind of stored or buffered, and then people kind of get to it.
And you know, Netflix but that's in a network perspective, whereas NBN were building that as in the network infrastructure, so it would even be better on top of that.
Yep.
But Netflix do that now. If you're a big ISP, they will turn around to you and say, to Telstra, to Optus, to Aussie Broadband, whoever, once you hit over a certain amount of users, they will say, here's an NBN box, a Netflix box,
Yep.
and they will give you a box of content that you install into your
Network.
into your server infrastructure,
Yep.
so that when you access Netflix, you're actually getting it served probably from Telstra rather than from Netflix directly.
Yeah, it's like a point of presence.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it helps reduce the stress on the infrastructure, and that's one of the reasons why when Netflix came into Australia, they reinforced the geo blocking, because they want it being delivered from Australia, because it actually costs them more money if you access it from America.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's looking at online. We're talking about broadcasts and things like that. But the fact is that what we're talking about is what you can do.
Yes.
So, there's all these broadcast things, but now, as we're doing on the video and podcast right here, you can create your own television studio in your house. Now, the simplest form is your phone.
Yep.
You can start screaming. I'd probably do that too. You can start streaming directly from your phone right now. And the easiest platform to do it with, whether I think it's the best platform or not, I don't know, but is Facebook.
Yep.
You can go in there, and on your phone, which I haven't got a screen dump of, but there is an option there that says live. Press live, access your camera, and you are broadcasting. Bang, you're an online streamer.
Yep.
You've already got the TV studio in your pocket, And it goes back to a joke from Back to the Future where they're holding the JVC video camera and they went, no wonder the president's an actor. Now you can broadcast the entire planet from that.
Yep.
Facebook also have audio if you want to do audio only. Can't work out how to do it on an iPhone. Been waiting for it for years, never seen it pop up. But you could do it on your Android device.
Yes, I can, apparently. So we found out.
Yes. So there's one option. YouTube, directly from the YouTube app, you've also got streaming directly on your phone as well. Yep. And you can stream live to YouTube, your channel. And you can go from there. But you might want to do something. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, they had dedicated ones as well. I know two of them existed at one point. I think one of them's gone to God. But there was Meerkat and there was Periscope. And I think Meerkat might have been the one that's gone.
So Periscope was owned by Twitter.
Yeah.
Meerkat, I think it was a standalone app that, got decimated very quickly.
Yep.
So Instagram and Facebook, which is owned by Instagram, of course, they
the other way around
started adopting the live things as well.
Yep.
And can go there. The one feature that I've seen Instagram doing with streaming at the moment, a lot of people using, is particularly with celebrities, people will jump onto their live stream and they can actually bring in one of their viewers and do a split screen.
Oh, wow.
Which is really cool too.
Yep.
So I would have to demonstrate it, and I haven't got my phone connected into a little bit of infrastructure to show that, but it can be done there. And if you just do, Instagram Live and you searching, and you'll see how to actually do that.
Yep.
So that for our listeners, that's a really basic way of doing this. Then you can start going, well, okay, we want to do some production values. We want to make it look a bit more like a TV show. And you can go to the next phase. Now, I'll get you to explain it in a moment, Shayne, but we use, we do recording on this rather than doing it live, but we could easily do this live if we wanted to.
Yep.
And we use a system called vMix. And there are other programs out there that have built-in capability to stream to put a feed directly into a streaming platform, whether it's Facebook video, what else is there? Twitch, YouTube, and even a third-party streaming server. So I'll get you to go through what we use for this little setup.
Yep.
And to give you an idea. So not only is the software, Shayne, but also how we get the video in and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so basically, as Phil said, we use vMix. vMix is a live streaming and video broadcasting and switching software. The main purpose of vMix when it was first built and written was purely just for video switching. It was actually made by a guy called Martin Sinclair in Queensland, so it's an Australian product.
Cool.
And he used it mainly for church services. And in America, where other ones that are quite popular, like Wirecast and OBS, they a lot of those people use it for church services and weddings and so on and so forth as well. So as Phil said, we primarily use vMix for recording, and then we post it to YouTube after we've done some editing and all that kind of stuff. But there's nothing stopping me from, and I don't really want to do it now because I don't know what it's going to do to my laptop, but there's nothing stopping me from just basically pressing one button and having it already set up to go to my YouTube channel. And I didn't do Facebook because Facebook wasn't done at the time, but I also had a Daily Motion channel set up. So yeah, I could either send it out to those two at once, or I could just send it to one, or what I could also do is go through what's called a Restreaming service, and probably the most popular one would be Restream.io. So it was just the one stream to them, and then they distribute it to however many other accounts that we have, because obviously there's bandwidth involved and it relies on your upstream, obviously.
Yep.
In the show notes, I have got a breakdown. There's links to websites where we've got all this information from, but one of the websites that I've got some of the information from gives a breakdown of what's required as for like upstream. So it goes down as low as 0.5 of a megabit per second, which is the minimum bandwidth required for streaming. So that's definitely going to be SD, more than likely be audio related stuff. Then the next jump is 1.5 megabits per second, which is the minimum bandwidth required for... it doesn't actually say minimum bandwidth required for broadcast, for a broadband connection. So that would be where you would start to get your video. Probably designed for mobile phones. That's the other advantage of another thing to factor in when you're, like if we were to live stream, we would have to kind of set it up so it catered for both those people that wanted to live stream on a small screen, like a mobile phone, versus someone who wanted to live stream, pick up the live stream on a TV or a computer. So we could vMix allows us to configure multiple streams depending on the device that our audience is going to use. I'll just finish this kind of table off. 3 megabits per second is where your standard definition video kicks in. 5 megabits per second. 5 megabits per second is where your high def kicks in as the minimum required, and 25 megabits per second is what's recommended for Ultra HD or 4K streaming. So the same could be kind of said in reverse. If you wanted to watch Netflix, they recommend that you wanted to watch 4K. Netflix is probably different because they do compression and all that kind of thing. But I guess to get the best quality, you would need a 25 megabit download stream. So. Yep. In my case, I've got the NBN fibre to the premises, so my current bandwidth is 100 down and 40 up. So there would be nothing stopping me from, having multiple streams, uploading and doing a multi-stream live stream, as well as getting the stream from Phil to as download and having 2 or 3 other guests as well. The only limiting factor is because I'm running everything off of one laptop. The laptop would probably kill over and die at that point. So that's what we use vMix for.
There you go. And there's a number of other products around there for that as well. Another one, which is, so vMix is a paid software.
Yeah. Again, how they structure the paying. They're all. I think most of them are paid, apart from OBS. That might be free.
Yep.
vMix does have a free version, but the limiting factor is how many what they call inputs. So and the quality of the recording as well. I've gone for the one where I think it allows me up to 1,000 inputs. So that would be like cameras, the screen sharing, that kind of thing. Even other devices on my network or other devices on a. If Phil and I set up a VPN connection between our houses and then we were effectively on the same local area network that way, then I could potentially pick up any of Phil's computers or whatever he's got on cameras. And I've gone for the high def version as well, so that allows me to do recording at up to 1080. The next one up is the Pro version, which allows for 4K recording and unlimited amount of inputs, but I can't see me going anywhere near 1,000, let alone why you'd want unlimited for. I think I paid $400 for this copy of it. And I think the most expensive version is less than $1,000, where if you're looking at Wirecast, I don't know the exact prices off the top of my head, but I know that vMix, out of the paid ones, the vMix is, I believe, is the cheapest. And like I said earlier, it's an Australian product as well.
Yep. So there's as we said, there's those ones. We'll put links into the show notes. The other free one, and I think this is probably a good one to start with. And then you can assess what your needs are. There's OBS Studio, which you mentioned, Shayne, which is a free one.
Yep.
However, there are, like, you can use it for free, you can use it really successfully, but there are different functionality, that like plugins and what have you, that you may need to pay for if it does what you want it to do.
Yep.
So it's mindful of that. The other cool thing that is vMix supports, and it would not natively support, this product supports OBS Studio natively, but it doesn't support vMix natively. But you can use keyboard shortcuts. There's a product that I've got one, and Daniel, who was on our podcasting episode, also uses a product called Elgato Stream Deck.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a little deck that sits on your desk, and it's got an LCD screen behind it, and you can customize the buttons. But you can then use it as a hardware, whether it be a vision mixer or an effects panel and things like that. So you can fire off, like, for example, doing the show we're doing, if I was recording it on my end, I could do, flick between camera shots. We did a trial on Geeks Interrupted using it. Our bandwidth wasn't suitable for it, so we haven't gone back to it. But I could do individual camera shots and then have break shots and things like that. And you can even use it as a soundboard, which is pretty cool.
Oh, right.
So you can, and on Geeks Interrupted, Daniel uses it as a soundboard. So he's got sounds hooked up and he presses that and it plays it instantly. So you need to, I suppose, if you're looking at online streaming, you need to look at what your purposes are. Yeah. Are you going to record? Are you going to go live? And have you got the right hardware to support what you want to do? I mean, you can do it with a webcam. And when we're doing this show with webcams,
yep,
you can use a digital SLR with a HDMI output going into your product to do that. You can even use your phone as a hands-free unit. So you can do that. There are so many different options that you can use, but using things like that are great. But then the next phase of it is, so have a look at it. We'll put some links in the show notes. But the next phase of it is saying, well, okay, where do I publish it?
Yep.
So you've got a couple of options. There's the free options, and you can publish directly to Facebook Live, which is good for engagement, YouTube, and Twitch. But there is a paid plan on Twitch, which is probably your better option. But if you're a Prime Video member, or if you're outside of Australia and you're an Amazon Prime member, you could automatically access Twitch Prime anyway. So it's worth doing that. So you Facebook Live, YouTube is capable of live streaming. You can do live streaming on there. But we were talking about cameras, and you were going to say something. We were talking about using webcams, and I said that you could potentially use a DSLR. Now, you had one additional comment to make about the DSLR, Shayne?
Yeah, there's with the DSLR, you know how like you usually get on the screen, how many photos you've got left, and the settings and all that kind of stuff. Depending on the type of DSLR that you've got, some of the older ones actually, when you connected a cable, I don't know if it's HDMI specifically or whatever type of cable that it comes with, they also send out the stuff that's on the screen. So when if you were to use that as a recording of a podcast, you would get all that, all those settings and all that information over the top of whatever it was you were trying to record.
And I totally agree with you there. The slimline DSLR that I have, you're exactly right. It mirrors what's on the screen. Yep. And you need to go into the setting to turn off all those screen overlays off. So just make sure that if you want to look at that particular option, that you can do that. Yep. The thing is, check it first, because a lot of devices don't have a capture card, so you need to buy a capture card. And there's things like Elgato have Camlink or a streaming service or things like that. They ain't cheap. They're a couple of $100. So you don't want to go and spend the money on that sort of thing and then find out it's useless. Yep. So even plug it directly into your TV and see if you can turn those overlays off. And then if you're comfortable that you're doing that to get that bit of better picture quality, then you can remove it and go from there. So that's, as we said, webcams and things like that are things that you can do at home. And then you might turn around and go, well, I want to pump up my quality of my streaming. Where do we go from here? So, we talked about buying the, whether it's vMix software or, the Elgato products. Elgato even do a green screen that you might want to do, your own custom backgrounds for and things like that. So you can do that. But then the next phase of it is you might want to go up to more expensive studio-based equipment. So, DSLRs can work. They're probably more suited to recording rather than live, but they will work. But you can even go to the next level for video, and that's start doing effectively what they've done at the TWICH network, and that's using products from a company called Blackmagic Design. Yep. They're actually a Melbourne-based company. They produce, they design and develop everything in Melbourne. Obviously, they're probably produced in China or overseas. Yep. But they have a range of products, and they have, amazing cameras that they add up in price very quickly once you start adding all the stuff onto them. But they start at a couple of $1,000 for a studio quality HD camera. You buy a lens, and that adds onto it very quickly. Yeah. But have a look do a search for Blackmagic Design, and you can see what stuff's there. To set up probably a decent studio setup, just from a tech side of things, you're probably looking at $10,000-$20,000 as a starting point. But you can do that. But I think the next phase of it was going, so we feed it in via Facebook and go from there. You might also want to stick to audio as well. So that's your other thing. We talked about some of the distribution platforms for podcasting on our podcasting episode, so make sure you listen to that. But you want to look at something live. Now, Facebook Live audio is there. It's a bit of a pain in the neck to use by the look of it. Not if you've got an Android phone. Well, true. But then there's also things like there's, Icecast. You can get an Icecast server that you pay for. Now, it depends on how you usually buy that, and it will depend on how many people who are going to listen. But you will need software to feed that into that Icecast server. The other thing that there's another product that we actually used to use at 3WBC, And this could be a really cool product. It is a really cool product if you're doing podcasting. So there's a service called Spreaker. And they have different plans depending on the type of service. You're going to do one-off broadcast, you're going to do full-time live and things like that. But they are a recording service and a streaming service in one. So what you do is there's some software that you can get for your iPad, or you can produce a live feed directly into their service from your own software. And what will happen is you can go live, and there's a playable widget that you can embed on your site, and it will push out a live signal. So you can do a live broadcast on that. But the minute you hit stop, it can automatically record that and post it as a podcast.
All right.
So, and then depending on the plan that you've got, will depend on what you can actually do. So, for example, plans and pricing. There's a free plan. You can do 15-minute daily sessions for nothing, and you can store 5 hours of audio. You get basic analytics on that, and you can push it out to various platforms. You can do a $6 US a month plan, and you can do 45 minutes daily. And you can't accumulate that. It's a set 45 minutes, but you can store 100 hours of audio from there. The next version is Broadcaster, which allows you 3 hours a day, and it's $20 US a month, or $199 US annually billed. Audio storage 500 hours. You get advanced analytics and connecting to external products and things like that. There's Anchorman, which is $50 US a month, 5 hours a day, 1,500 hours storage, and you can get full analytics and a few other services thrown in there, such as extra visibility. And then there's a station service, which is $1,200 US a year, and this is what we used to use for 3WBC. You can do live 24/7 unlimited streaming. It's got unlimited audio storage, so you could store a copy of all of your programs. You can do full analytics and a few of other embedded players and things like that as well. So that's at Spreaker.com. They're not a sponsor.
Well, they can be.
They can be. We used the service with them at 3WBC for a while because it was quite cost effective. We've now moved to a dedicated IceCast service because of the type of hardware that we've got set up and things like that at the station. So it's actually made more sense, and it's an Australian-based host as well. So that's the other thing to look at is you need to build a platform, use a platform that's going to give you different or what your expected audience levels are going to be.
So when you guys move to the NBN, and assuming that you might say go for an unlimited plan, because Aussie Broadband offer an unlimited plan for the one I'm on is $99 a month.
Yep.
Again, Aussie Broadband aren't a sponsor, but they can be. Are you? I forgot my question now. Would you need some sort of intermediary kind of service? Couldn't you just, if your bandwidth was kind of enough and your data was unlimited, couldn't you just stream it straight from the studio?
Well, we sort of do. So, but the issue is that if we can set up a server on site that can push out the streams, but if you've got 1,000 people listening at once, that's 1,000 outgoing connections from your internet service.
Okay. Yeah.
So what you want to do is you want to push that, and we talked about this before, you want to push that stream out to a content delivery network, and then people get access to that from the content delivery network.
Yeah, I guess, because
not only do you have to have a connection that can handle that concurrent stream service, but then you have to have a server that can actually handle the bandwidth that's being delivered by.
Yep.
So that's you're better off paying for a service that does that. I mean, you can deploy stuff on Amazon Web Services. There's a whole different raft of different servers that are used for delivering content. I think Netflix does use Amazon Web Services for delivering a lot of their for some of their content as well. So you want to be able to deliver it to as many people as possible, but you need to look at what your audience is going to be.
Yep.
For those who don't understand what a content delivery network is, Shayne mentioned it before, where they've got different hubs in different places, so that they can push out a stream to that hub, and then when you try to get that access to that, it will push you to the closest local content delivery network, and it will access the stream from there. So you're not getting one server being hammered by every single connection. So you need to do it, but I suppose it's assessing it, is going, what am I pushing out? How many people are viewing it and going, and listening to it and going from there? Facebook is a really easy one. I'm assuming vMix has Facebook integration built into it.
It does, yep.
OBS definitely has Facebook and Twitch integration built into it. You can broadcast there. People are going to get it delivered to them on Facebook and what have you. And Facebook even now has video apps for Apple TV, Android TV, and things like that. You can just access it directly from that.
Yep. The only potential gotcha I've found with YouTube, and I guess it's the same for all of them, is that once you finish the live stream, I think you touched on it with the other service you spoke about, it just automatically kind of saves it as a video. So, in the case where, we had that technical glitch, that technical glitch will stay up on YouTube, and because there's no way of kind of editing it, because it's just recorded the live stream. So what you would do is you would either make the decision to take it down after it's happened, and then just leave the edited version up there. The advantage, especially with podcasting, of doing a live stream is you can have a live chat at the same time. So the people that are listening to the live stream can go into like a chat room of some sort and obviously talk about the show and chat amongst yourselves. And you guys do that with Geeks Interrupted, and I know TWICH does it, obviously.
Yep. So, and you're exactly right. I mean, the advantage of doing live streaming is the immediacy of getting out to your audience.
Yep. However,
going out on a recorded product can give you a slicker product.
Yeah.
So, we don't see it's not, I was going to say, this is not the right word, but I was going to say we don't see the value of going out live for us.
Yep.
You'd hear me swear a lot. You'd see the technical issues and all that sort of thing.
Yep.
But we're not the type of program that has the required immediacy of going live.
Yep.
Whereas, if you're doing your sports coverage, then you do.
Yeah.
You want it. You want to see it right now.
Yep.
So, assess your content. Is it suitable to go live? Do you need to go live? Because, if you look at it, I know that Daniel Olivares, who was on our podcasting episode, he does do some streaming on Twitch. He streams at 720, I think.
Yep.
But he records at 1080, 60 frames a second.
Yep.
And then he uses that as his archive.
Yeah.
That helps his connection speed. It helps this. It helps that. All around it supports the type of things that he's doing. But he can top and tail it, tidy it up at the end, and then repost it to YouTube or wherever he wants to post. So, you can look at that. Now, you've talked about the purposes in the show notes, Shayne. There's podcasting, radio, sports, church, weddings, and things like that. That's where live streaming works, getting that message out there, getting it out to people. 3WBC is involved in doing football commentary, so we focus on the audio side. But the league does video streaming, and it's done through YouTube. They have someone who's got a proper box that has, a decent camera, and it pushes it out through some aggregated 4G modems and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's broadcast to YouTube.
Yeah.
So there's some helpful sides of it doing it that way. And then if you're doing, then there's audio and things like that. Now, the simplest thing that you can do is you can get an app on a computer and just start streaming your audio from there. For the radio station, we use a product called Tyline. Tieline is a hardware base that's developed in Perth.
Yep.
But it's very economical. I mean, we're recording this on a Sunday. We did football broadcast today, and the 5 hours of FM quality broadcast bi-directional would have used 400 megabytes of data.
Oh, right.
So it's very efficient.
Yep.
But the way we do it is we get that signal. It's a way of connecting us between the site and the studio. So it connects us back to us on dedicated hardware and then pushes it out from there. And that's the thing. One of the issues in your chain can be your hardware.
Yep.
If you're using a computer, it needs to, and particularly with video, it might need to, encode it into a different format and push it out. And you need to really understand what your hardware capabilities are. Using a 286 from 1995 is not going to help you.
No.
Not that I think it'd run anymore anyway.
Yep.
But I know that I know of someone who's doing some streaming, and they were recording and things like that, and they bought a Core i7 NUC computer, and it couldn't handle it.
Yep.
With what they were doing, so they had to go and get a dedicated, basically a gaming PC to do what they wanted to do.
Well, a lot of the reason for that, I know with vMix uses the graphics card for a lot of the processing.
Yep.
So the laptop I've got has got a 1060 in it.
Yep.
And it's got the Core i7. It's even though it's a laptop, it's basically it's more
desktop
of a portable desktop or a desktop replacement. It's not a branded PC. It's by a company called Metabox, which is again a Perth-based company. We should actually organise to get all these people in as guests, kind of down the track.
Absolutely, I'd love to talk to the guys about Tieline too.
Yeah,
Whew.
I used to work with him.
Oh, there you go. So so you do need to look at your hardware and what you're asking from it too.
Yeah.
If you're just recording something and then publishing it, your lower spec hardware is probably going to be okay. Yeah. But if you want to do gaming, then you want to do a higher bit rate. You want to do a higher frame rate to really show what you've been doing and things like that. So you've got to make that decision on what it is. And a lot of the software that you use, once you've made a decision on software, look at the forums that support that software and they can tell you what it's capable of.
Yep.
And so it's a combination of software, internet connection, so on and so forth. We talked about it, whether it be the podcasting episode, we've talked about things in the past. Decide what your content is and then build your stream around it, because you might go, well, I can stream at 60 frames, a second, but is it going to be me talking about how to make a cake?
Yeah.
Well, then do you really need all that?
Yeah.
Probably not.
No. Yeah, if it's just talking heads like most podcasts are, or like we're doing, 30 frames a second is probably enough. Yep.
And then the other thing is look at, if video is important, but look at your audio quality. Now what we'll do is this is gonna I'll change a setting and you'll get the difference. So if I change this setting now for me it makes no difference, but Shayne, you should be able to hear me probably very echoey, very low volume, that sort of thing.
The volume hasn't changed, but it's echoey, so you've gone to your laptop mic, I'm guessing?
Yes, no, so I've gone to the mic that's built into the camera.
Oh, yeah.
So if I put my hand like there, you probably, which this is not great for our audio listeners, but it probably, can you hear much, or has it dropped off a little bit?
No, it dropped off a little bit. Your autofocus kicked in though.
Oh yeah. So the other thing is that we'll go back to this mic, and that should sound better now.
Yes.
So look at the quality of your mic. Videos are probably a little bit more forgiving because you're expecting a bit of room noise, but Rode have lapel mics for smartphones and things like that. because we're doing this partly for audio as well, we use the microphones that we talked about in our podcast episode, and we're just sitting here talking. So using a bigger mic's okay. So understand what those things in the product that you're delivering, so you can go anywhere from, as we said, pick up a phone, go live streaming on Facebook or YouTube, and bang, there's one aspect to it, through to actually building a minor studio setup for yourself.
Yep. One other thing I wanted to touch on, and your autofocus kind of remind me of it, is ideally I kind of turn all the auto stuff off. So, once I've kind of focused the camera and everything, I turn the autofocus off. Once I've white balanced the camera, I turn the auto white balance thing off. I think I've got the auto still on for like things like the gain. When you're in a room like this and the lighting isn't going to change, it's probably not as big a deal. But yeah, definitely turn things off like autofocus. Turn things off like auto volume adjustments. I had an issue, I was saying before the show, when I was preparing for the screensavers, and they use Skype, and obviously we use Zoom here. I had to download an older version of Skype, because the one that comes embedded in Windows 10, it doesn't have its own auto volume settings. You had to use the ones that were in Windows, and for whatever reason, I couldn't find a way of turning the auto volume adjustment thing off. So every time I spoke, the microphone volume just kind of went up to 100%, and I sounded like I was booming loud, and it was distorted, and luckily the older version of Skype still had the actual built-in settings where you could turn off the auto adjusting. So yeah, definitely, if you can, just remember to turn off all the auto stuff.
Absolutely. The one thing I would say about anything is that, whether it's be the sound, the look, the feel, the content, whatever, look at what your favorite podcast is, your favorite, webcast, whatever you want to produce. Go back to the things that influence you and look at how they look and how did they create that. And that will give you a guide to how to get there. What service do you use? Do you Facebook? Do you use YouTube? Do you use both? Do you use, all these different things? Do I do video? Do I do audio? And then you can start building your platform around that to get you to online streaming. But really, the tools that are going to help you with, particularly with video, they're free these days.
Yeah.
YouTube, Facebook, that's what you need to use, and you can do it directly from your phone.
Yep. Agree.
Was there anything else you wanted to add before we wrap our feature topic up?
No, nothing specifically about the feature topic. When we wrap up the actual episode and we talk about all the ways you can get to us, there's a couple of other things I wanted to add to that. But
sure.
As far as the live streaming and broadcasting topic goes, I think we're done.
Excellent. Now, remember, we'll have links to all the things we've talked about, such as vMix, OBS Studio. You've even mentioned XSplit, Wirecast. We'll put some links into Tyline to look at their products as well, Elgato and what have you into the show notes. So have a look in your podcast app, have a look on our webpage. Whatever's attached, you'll be able to see that there. So make sure you have a look at that, or visit prosumerit.com/MTO and you'll be able to find it there. It's a very brief overview of online streaming. It's something that you could talk about for hours, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, you can do it from your Instagram app or whatever. Just get on there and do it. Make your own content. It's always fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it for our feature topic. We'll take a very quick break and we'll be back with more, or to finalise the show, just after this. And welcome back to My Tech Opinion. We're going to finish up this episode. It's been a bit of a chat on live streaming and broadcasting. And as I said, we've barely scratched the surface, and have a look at all those stuff that's around, and set up your YouTube account and go from there. Before we finish though, Shayne, next week or our next episode, we're going to have a look at the topic we've decided on is, and you're an expert on this more than I am, virtual augmented and mixed reality. Now, we touched on it a bit at the start of the show, but we're going to head into that deep dive topic and look at what is available and some of the things around that. And I'm sure I'll ask you a lot of questions about it as we get into that episode. Now, was there, you were going to mention about contacting us, or we've had a contact from someone?
Yeah, what I was going to mention was everything's still available, obviously, through our website, streamingit.com, and specifically for us, /MTO.
Yep.
The other thing that I did the other week was create an account on TuneIn Radio.
Cool.
So you can now find us on TuneIn Radio, as well as the existing services that we were already available on. You can get the video on YouTube, and you can get the audio on things like the Apple Podcast Store. Is it called Apple Podcast?
Yes.
Yep.
Apple Podcast. Yep.
Yep. I did the TuneIn Radio because I was led to believe that would fix the issue with the Google Home, and it hasn't fixed the issue with the Google Home. But
no.
It's hit and miss, because I think I said to you a couple of weeks ago, I was listening to one of our previous episodes, and you'd said the key phrase, and my Google Home did exactly what you wanted.
Let's have a look, and we'll do it now and see what happens. Hey Google, play the latest episode of My Tech Opinion.
Sorry, I'm not sure how to help.
Hey Google, play My Tech Opinion.
My apologies, I don't understand.
Okay. Hey Alexa, play the latest episode of My Tech Opinion. No, she doesn't know either.
All right.
Hey Siri, play the latest episode of My Tech Opinion.
Sorry, I couldn't.
Oh, freaking hell.
I think you might have to use the word podcast.
Hey Siri, play the My Tech Opinion podcast. Play the My Tech Opinion podcast.
You'll need to unlock your iPhone first.
Oh, okay then.
Welcome to My Tech Opinion, episode 13. My name is
There you go.
Try using the word podcast with the Google one.
Hey Google, play the My Tech Opinion podcast.
All right, here's the latest episode of Inform My Opinion.
No.
Mo and Ray's what
Yeah.
must be done to combat
I get that.
climate change.
Hey Google, stop. Anyway, enough of that. We'll see if we can continue to rectify that home automation thing. Far out. I don't know. Anyway. If you want to send us an email, mytechopinion@prosumit.com. You can see that address at the bottom of the screen, or head to the website, prosumit.com/MTO. Also, thanks to Aussie Tech Heads Web Hosting for making all this possible. They get us on the screen. Visit athwebhosting.com.au. Thanks very much to those guys. Shayne, of course, thank you, because you don't want to hear me talking for 2 hours straight.
No problem at all.
And we look forward to seeing you on our next episode, number 15.
14.
14.
No, this is 14. Yeah, 15.
This is 14.
Yeah.
15. Yeah, freaking me out there. And we're going to talk about virtual, augmented, and mixed reality. Until episode 15, Shayne, thank you again.
No problem.
And we'll see you all next time on My Tech Opinion.
Bye.